Welcome to the Rewilded Human podcast, where Dr. Lucille and Lynn will tackle your most difficult and intimate questions with candor, tough love, and a little dash of humor. In today's episode,
first of all, if it's a daughter, the mother has to, give her own direct experience of what it's like to, have period and grow breasts and all of that stuff. She has to also impart a sense that this is normal, this is healthy. If they don't explore their own body, they have no idea what really pleasures them. And so they're at the mercy of boyfriends or husbands who also really don't know what they're doing.
So when you turn inward and give yourself that self-love that you're not getting from someone else, then perhaps your body is healing and you are growing more loving towards yourself. Self-love and self-acceptance becomes more important in your life. Like that would make a lot of sense to me.
Welcome, everybody, to the Rewilded Human podcast, episode number 38. And this episode is all about exploring solo sexuality, because sexuality is one of those mysterious subjects that we think we know or we're supposed to know all about, but really we don't. We don't know. So I, Dr. Lucille, and my lovely and very, very wise co-host, Lynn, are going to tackle this topic today. We look forward to your comments on this episode. It's going to be epic.
It's going to be epic, guys. Yes, definitely. Yeah. I'm already feeling a little bit uncomfortable.
Which is fine. That's
you're much more comfortable with this topic, Lucille, than I am, which is great. Maybe it's because my parents are always watching. And I told them last time too, the sex episode, don't watch it. And I know they watched it. So Mom, Dad, if you're watching this, turn it off right now. Okay, now we can continue.
I know that we've taken care of Lynn's parents. Okay. Well, that's interesting. So why don't we start there, Lynn? So other than your parents, being self-conscious around your parents, which I understand, I just don't have parents around, I know. Other than that, is there anything that makes you uncomfortable about the topic of sexuality, especially solo sex?
Okay, can I tell you a funny story?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I was about, I think maybe 14, 15, maybe 16 years old. We were living in Toronto and my parents had like this amazing waterbed. So once in a while I would go and sleep in their waterbed because it was just so, waterbeds were so cool in the 80s, right? And I was like, I would just go in like in the afternoon and sleep there. And one day I kind of stuck my hand down on the side of the waterbed and I found a vibrator. And I didn't even know what it was. I mean, I guess I must have been 14 because I was just very naive then. And I found this and I was just shocked. I was horrified that my parents would use something like this. I was disgusted. These things were not that normal back then. And I was just shocked and I put it back and I just couldn't sleep and I was so upset. But wait for it. A few months later, my parents also found a vibrator and they thought it was mine. And they were disgusted and they were like, my God, our teenage daughter is bringing her vibrator into our bed and hiding it in our bed. I'm like, are you guys crazy? Why would I do that? So we finally came to the conclusion that actually probably belonged to the people that sold them the apartment and the waterbed came with it.
Oh.
So we were accusing each other. And I'm sure my parents still to this day don't believe that that wasn't mine. But I mean, who would take the vibrator and hide it in their parents' bed? I mean, that would be pretty stupid.
No, makes no sense whatsoever.
So I guess from that story, you can conclude that, there was not a lot of sex talk or anything in our house, these topics.
Well, there are a few themes in this great story, which includes things like, we get disgusted at the thought of older people like our parents. Yes, pull out the red flag. We get disgusted at the thought of older people having sex or masturbating. Older people are uncomfortable with the idea that their children are sexual.
Yes.
And nobody really talks about sex in a way that nourishes us and supports us in having a full and thriving sexual life, right?
Absolutely.
I remember here's my, shameful story, although I didn't quite understand it at the time. I remember masturbating when I was a very small child. I masturbated in my crib. Well, I figured it out.
And you
And
remember that?
Of course, it was a peak experience. How could I not
Wow.
remember that? And one day my mother walked in on me and she looked at me and she said, "You don't do that. You don't do that." She didn't punish me or scold
Yeah.
me or shame me or anything. You don't do that. Oh, or I think she also said something that was a little bit humorous, but that was that. And I thank her for that because usually she could be very, very harsh and judgmental and all of that. So I didn't feel really shamed or traumatized, but I realized that, oh, this is something that we're not supposed to do openly. Okay. But it feels really good.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting how often I've had stories from my clients who, as children, were shamed when they were caught masturbating, which actually is a very normal and healthy thing for children to do if it's, not obsessive, if it's not constant, repetitive and done in inappropriate contexts. It's normal. That's
Yeah.
part of
You're discovering your body, like you're discovering your fingers, your hair. It's just
Exactly. And that's how it should be done. And I don't know how much sex education you got, Lynn, but I got the clinical version.
Yeah, same in Toronto. I mean, back then it was,
Yeah. And I got it, not only at school, which was like, it was also confusing because of the way they taught it, but also from my mother. It was also very confusing because she had a very scientific orientation about everything. And so I got the version of the birds and the bees, okay, well, the man inserts sperm, or the sperm meets the egg, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And okay, but how does that happen? Like,
Mhm.
how does that happen? Like, does a guy look at you and suddenly his sperm shoots? Like, how does that happen? And you can't even ask those questions because
Yeah.
the adults would get really uncomfortable with it,
Yeah.
But I was plagued by this. Like, how does that happen? I don't know. So did you get something like that? Did you find you were really confused about
We never talked about it. Like with my mother, we never talked. With my family, it was never like, even now, if I would like say something, I travel quite a bit with my parents. We do all kinds of stuff together when they're here. And if I like mention something, like I said something that I'm on my period, my mom's like, shh, like dad's here. Like you can't say that in front of your dad that you're on your period. And it's like, you grew up, you were there with two women, me growing up with my mother. Is that so shameful that I have my period? They can't say that. So I think that was a big no. We just never talked about things like that. So not as a child and not even later on in life. We never discussed these
So
things.
you learned everything from school? Is that where you
Well,
learned it,
from
or
school, I guess, from friends.
friends?
And
Yeah, that's another
but
big source of information that's of
I never really got that talk. No.
Yeah. Oh,
But
yeah.
I don't know if the talk you got was any better than the no talk that I got, because
Yeah. I mean,
that's not very helpful either. But I don't know, it's
no.
so hard because I'm trying to think if I ever had that talk with my son. And I don't think I did. And I'm sure his father didn't. So I don't think we ever had that talk with him. But I mean, there was internet, right? I don't know. But maybe because we never had that talk. But it would be the father's job to have the talk, no? Not the mother's.
Yeah, I would say so for sure. I think that each parent has their own place in sex education. And the very fact that it's so uncomfortable that parents don't want to talk about it, or adults don't want to talk about it with children, automatically gives the unfortunate message that it's taboo. There's something bad about this. This is wrong.
Yeah.
And yet where that leaves people is growing up thinking that somehow they have to know it all. God knows where they would learn it. We have to know it all, and we're all having great sex lives,
Yeah.
even if we have no idea what that's all about.
True.
That was another myth that was really beyond belief. And so, yeah, to your question, I think that both parents should be involved in the sex education of both
Both
genders of
sexes.
children.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Because first of all, if it's a daughter, the mother has to, give her own direct experience of what it's like to, have period and grow breasts and all of that stuff. She has to also impart a sense that this is normal, this is healthy, your health, like everything else that
Yeah.
that you do in life, it is important. They have to start talking about things like masturbation
Mhm.
and make it okay. I mean, obviously there's a place for it. You don't do it publicly. We all
Yeah.
know that. But to I would say even encourage a daughter to explore her own genitals,
Mhm.
find out how she gets aroused.
Mhm.
Now, I might be really out on a limb for a lot of people with that one. But you see, the problem is that women are then handicapped. If they don't explore their own body,
Mhm.
they have no idea what really pleasures them. And so they're at the mercy of boyfriends or husbands who also really don't know what they're doing because they
Got their
don't know.
information from porn.
Yeah, get their
Yeah.
information from porn or from their buddies in the locker room or what
Yeah.
have you, and they have no idea what really pleasures a woman. So if a woman can't speak about that, can't tell her partner, then, she's in for years of, substandard sex.
Yeah.
And no wonder a lot of women get turned off by the time they're in their 40s. The missed opportunities are like so tragic.
Mhm.
You could have had a really enjoyable, lovely sex life that could even have been connected to love
Yeah.
of your partner, right?
Yeah.
So I think the mother is very important in teaching the daughter about the journey of sexuality for women and make it really normal and healthy
Yeah.
for the daughter to find her own way sexually.
Yeah.
But the father, in the case of a daughter, the father is also important in that he has to teach her about men,
Mm. Yeah.
in a realistic way that, you're going to be starting to date soon. And, this is what boys and men are like. And this is what you want to look for in a guy who's going to treat you well,
No, we never
and
had that talk, but yeah, that one, I totally agree with you. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Because there's just
all
so
of
much
that-
shame around everything. And I think once you grew up with that, then it's really difficult to leave that behind. And I would say that probably girls get shamed even more than boys,
Oh,
when
absolutely
boys start
more.
playing with their genitalia, oh, you go, my boy, and
Yes,
close
yes,
the door. But when
yes.
it's a girl, it's like, ooh, nice
That's
girls
right.
don't do that, right?
That's right. That's right. And so there's so much shame and trauma, more shame and trauma. I think you're right in terms of women and their own sexuality, where they can never really feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, they may still enjoy it, but it comes at the cost of guilt and shame. And
Yeah.
that is
That's
so unfortunate. Robs
very
us.
unfortunate. How do you
Yeah.
break out of this cycle? So how do you, if you're say, let's say we're talking about we're talking to women in their 40s and 50s, and they never actually had that opportunity to explore their bodies and for self gratification and masturbate on their own and stuff like that, and they don't really know how their bodies work. How would a woman like that get started?
Well, it comes from desire, right? And it comes from being exposed to alternate points of view, usually from other women
Mm-hmm.
who are more, it's an old term, sexually liberated, if you want to call
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. I like
Right?
that. I like that.
But, there's so much out there now in terms of sex gurus and sex coaches and material on normal sexuality and various kinky things and all that stuff. It's so out there right now that you can't avoid it. It's just like it's there. And so if you start getting curious, and the time to get that, what most women get curious, a lot of the time is when they've had a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And they think, well, is my life over?
Mm-hmm.
And then they begin to realize that, once they get over the grief and the shock and all of that of the divorce, that they're still alive. they're still alive, they're still kicking, they want to have adventure, and they may notice that their bodies start coming alive too, and they start yearning for sex.
Yeah.
This is a funny story of a friend of mine whose mother had a wonderful, like really satisfying relationship and marriage for many years, and then her husband died. And she was kind of thinking she was okay being a widow for the rest of her life, and she had friends and she could travel and all of that. But after a while, she began to notice that she had a desire, it just started welling up in her to have intimacy with a man. She didn't want to go out and date or anything like that. So what she did was she would go to Home Depot at like, I don't know, 7 a.m, and she would simply walk up and down the aisles and smell the testosterone, because that was the
No.
time when all the contractors and all the do-it-yourselfers were in there buying their stuff for their projects. And she would just like be in a daze of kind of a mild sexual stimulation that would carry her for the rest of her days.
I love that.
So, sometimes our bodies are mysterious, and they kick in and they start telling us, you're not done with me yet.
Yeah.
You're not done with me. And so
that's so fun. That's a great idea. I thought you were going to say she was going there to meet men, because that would be a good time to meet men as well.
maybe at some point she did. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like dating at Home Depot. I mean, I don't know.
I need
don't know.
closure on that story. I need to know the details. Because people are always asking, where can you go and meet men? Well, Home Depot. I mean, what a great idea.
Yeah, of
Most
course.
of them are probably married, but I'm sure there's a few that are not. I mean, that's very clever. But yeah, to get the smell of testosterone, I like that. Because Lucille, like for example, what happens? I have a friend who got divorced like 20 years ago and hasn't had another man since or anything. And I often ask her, and I said, but don't you have the desire? And she says, sometimes, I'm watching something on TV and there's like a love scene and I feel something a little bit going on down there, but that's it. But if you don't have sex for decades, and you don't masturbate for decades, like what happens down there? Like, does it just
yeah, I mean,
spider webs and
you don't use it, you lose it. If you don't use it, you lose it. However, it also does not mean that you can't revive it if you want to at some point.
Yeah.
And the simplest way to do that, if you have a desire, is to just be sensual and explore your own body.
But how do you get started? Like someone that's never done that. Do you put on something sexy to watch or read something?
You can, absolutely. And there are lots of sex coaches out there who have programs for women and courses and all sorts of, they have tips online and, on social media and all of that. So you can find a lot of stuff out there. And there are so many ways that you can do this. But sometimes it's just simply starting with something that it's so natural, but we never do it, which is just sort of caressing your own skin. Like just very naturally, just caressing your skin. Very light touch. Yes, I see you're getting pleasure from it all.
Yeah.
And even that is, so it starts the wheels rolling, so to speak. And it starts, excreting things like oxytocin. And oxytocin is such a beautiful feel-good love hormone that it will motivate people to go further a lot of the time and just explore more and more. Like some women don't caress their buttocks. They will not caress parts of their body that they're ashamed of. I know you have no shame about your body at all, Lynn, and I admire you so much. You are great in this department. But some women, they never, ever touch themselves. And sometimes it's just touching and daring yourself to touch those parts of you that you've been neglecting and maybe hating, and just do it in a curious, playful manner.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
There are so many benefits to that. You do start, secreting the hormones that will start creating more and more desire, and that will start priming your brain, to develop those areas that are involved in sexuality. And the other benefit of this, which may not sound like a benefit, but because a lot of women have faced trauma about their bodies, maybe they have been raped, maybe they had sexual abuse. It's so rampant among women that this can be a very healing process. You start touching the parts of you that you rejected, maybe are disgusted by, or maybe bring up emotional or physical pain because of your past. You start touching them in, at least a, neutral way.
Yeah.
You don't have to love your body parts just yet, but just in a neutral, kind of curious way. And just notice. Sometimes that can be in and of itself like just so healing. You start feeling appreciation and love for those parts of your
That
body.
makes so much sense, Lucille, because especially for women who were abused, I think
Yeah.
when they are with another man, it almost feels like being abused over and over again.
Yeah.
Unless
Yes.
they're like really gentle and very, very, they know about what happened and they're very gentle and understanding in the situation. But otherwise, it's just abrasive and it feels like you're just being abused over and over again. So when you would turn inward and give yourself that self-love that you're not getting from someone else, then perhaps your body is healing and you are growing more loving towards yourself. Self-love and self-acceptance becomes more important in your life. Like that would make a lot of sense to me. But Lucille, as far as like, we know the benefits of sex is, when you're having sex with someone else, with the oxytocin release and the hormones and everything, the health benefits. When you're masturbating, do you still have those same health benefits as when you have a partner?
No, that's an excellent question, because there are orgasms and then there are orgasms.
Yes.
Okay. And there are ancient sexual practices. They're actually spiritual practices, but they incorporate sexuality because they didn't, the ancients didn't see that as separate, like our sexuality somewhere over there hidden in the closet, and then there's the rest of us. So if you study Taoism or Tantra, they make a distinction. It's very interesting. They make a distinction about orgasms that expel energy, which is what we're taught. It's all about is that explosive orgasm.
The release, right?
The release.
Yeah.
And then there is the orgasm that actually infuses you with energy. It's as if you're pulling the energy out from a well, and it's just naturally flowing and radiating through your body in a way that actually gives you more energy. And it is thought to increase longevity, health and longevity, to have sex that way. It really does start with, you have to know how to do that for yourself. I mean, I guess, yes, you can do it with a partner. You can be learning together. But, if you're coming from the standard Western style of sexuality, it's hard. You have to break patterns and break your own conditioning, and you have to ease your way into it and be very non-judgmental and just curious and allow yourself to be a little bit playful. But it's not easy because we are so ingrained with this, gotta get that orgasm out. Yeah, God, and your whole, how your whole body has to tense up and you have to kind of push it out, that sort of thing. That is not conducive to longevity, and it's not all that healthy either. Interestingly enough.
So slow and steady.
Slow and steady, yes. And the other thing that's taught in these ancient practices is that they know that women and men are very different in their sexual energy. And they, in Tantra, they talk about men being fire and women being water, so that men can ignite quickly and then they can get extinguished quickly. That's their sexual energy. But with women, their energy has to really nurture it well. the water has to come to a boil gradually. And it's much better for a woman to be on simmer as much as possible so that she can more easily get to the state of sexual arousal and proper orgasm. But the guy is like boom, boom, and and so the partners have to know their own sexual energy. They have to know what keeps them simmering. They have to communicate that with the partner, and the women have to support their partner in developing longer performance, so that they don't,
longer, but not too long.
However, if the purpose of the man being able to sustain an erection for longer and longer and longer is that's what gives the woman the greatest satisfaction, in that it's the cervical or deep vaginal orgasms that are so much more satisfying to the woman. And believe it or not, there are couples where they can go for hours, and the women can have 10, 20, 30 cervical orgasms and not be ready to quit.
Wow.
So it's very different from clitoral orgasms.
Yeah. That's
right. Very different.
30,
so clitoral orgasm. Yeah, absolutely.
Well done, ladies.
Yes. And there are sex coaches that teach people that, or tantric practitioners who will teach people that. But it requires that the man has to be in top shape, and he has to be in mastery of his sexual energy. So he can't just orgasm, because he can't tolerate it any longer. He has to be in tremendous mastery. A lot of this you can do with a partner, but if you know how to start doing it with yourself first, then you have a much greater chance of finding a compatible partner who you can communicate with. You know exactly how to instruct them on what to do for you. And so this is one reason why I think marriages falter. Because if women are not getting that slow and consistent effort by the man to give them repeated vaginal orgasms, the women can get very, I'm sorry to say it, bitchy and cranky, because they're never getting what they want. The guy can pop off and he feels good. The women are, no wonder women get turned off of sex if they're doing it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, you're another one of our audience called it being like unpaid prostitute.
Yeah, unpaid prostitute. Yeah. But listen, for example, they say men, if they're ejaculating too often, or if they're masturbating too often, there is a theory that their dopamine will eventually get depleted.
Absolutely.
And that it can actually have a very negative effect on their health, their mental health, relationships, their lifestyle. Now, what about, is it the same for women? So for example, a woman having 30, 40 orgasms, would that deplete her? Or is it a completely different thing between men and women?
Well, in neither case is it recommended that the woman cannot expend her energy much on the clitoral orgasm. That's a no-no. But she can gain and preserve tremendous amounts of energy through the cervical orgasms. It's almost like it's infinite.
Because it's an internal thing rather than an external.
It's the circulation of energy. It's taking that energy that's lying there dormant in your loins, and it's circulating it in a way that's just so beneficial. With men, if they are masturbating too much, if they're having too many orgasms, it's not good for them. They do get depleted. Their dopamine does get depleted. It's not healthy. If they can maintain an erection for a long period of time, because what they do is the men can maintain an erection, and then over an hour or two of lovemaking, maybe getting close to the orgasm. And what they learn is to breathe. So they pull themselves back so they never actually ejaculate. And their penises may go a little bit more flaccid, but never completely lose the erection.
Yeah.
And then they build up the energy again, and they get to that peak where they're almost about to have an, and then they pull back, and that way, the man is not expending his precious life force on ejaculating all the time, right? And he's also circulating his energy.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Do you find that men, as they get older, perhaps they're not able to perform as well in a relationship? Would they still be able to maintain an erection during masturbation? Would there be a difference between being with a partner and being alone? Or if they're suffering from erectile dysfunction, would it be in both cases?
Okay, so there are many reasons for erectile dysfunction. And so that really, if that's happening, and the man still is interested in either having solo sex or partner sex, whatever, that really has to be investigated. Like, you know, Lynn, you probably know far better than I do what are all the reasons why a man could have erectile dysfunction. You have to explore all sorts of, physical possibilities.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest ones is diet.
Yes. Men on the carnivore diet, they do really well. They do really well.
Yes. And men who drink a lot, who smoke a lot, they're going to deteriorate for sure and have the erectile dysfunction. But men at any age, if they have a desire, can learn to hold erections and to pleasure themselves in a way where they're not always just ejaculating, or they can go for a long period of time in that state of just kind of rising almost to the peak, but then they plateau, and then, and again, there are lots of teachers out there who will teach men to do that.
Yeah.
And it, personally, I think it just revitalizes men so much. They don't know either. They don't know that these things are possible until they read it somewhere or somebody tells them about it. So sometimes a lot of them are very keen if they're, heading into, the nursing home era, and they don't want to really go there. A lot of them are keen to learn these new techniques and revitalize themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's fantastic. And I'm sure men don't have as much, even later on in life, they don't have as much shame with touching their bodies and enjoying their bodies as women have, right?
Do you know, that's not necessarily true. That maybe, yes, I think maybe they're less self-conscious than women. They don't explore their bodies either. It's not like they have sensual pleasure from their genitals. It's just that, they have this urge to, to have an orgasm. So they start masturbating, and that's it. But, they don't pleasure themselves. They don't have a really healthy joy in their bodies. It's mostly focused on getting to that orgasm.
Mechanical,
exactly. Yeah, they can masturbate all they want to, and they're fine with that, but it's kind of a detached sexuality with their organs. It's not like they can scratch their balls, but it's not like they just gently, massage their balls or caress their genitals or anything like that. It's like, let's just get the job done and get it out, and that's it.
Thank the monkey.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that one time during this episode. Okay, I'm done.
Well, you got it out. That's great.
I needed to get that out. So, Lucille, what can we do to encourage people for more self-discovery, for more exploration, for letting go of the shame, for enjoying their bodies and getting the full health benefits and just feeling good about touching their own bodies?
I would just say, if a woman is not ready to give up on her sexuality, if she still has an urge but she just doesn't know what to do, I would say, check out some of the teachers on social media who are teaching people self-pleasuring. You can go to there are books now written about Taoism and Tantra. You can start there.
There's also porn now specifically for women. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
I think it was called.
Yeah.
Maybe
I
that's
mean,
no.
it doesn't appeal to me, but
Yeah.
if that's what helps. One thing, and this is very interesting, women think, oh, I gotta get a dildo, well, dildos are fine, but it is the vibrators that are the problem. Okay. And often, the really expert teachers on sexuality will warn you not to, or try to avoid using a vibrator.
Yeah.
And why would that be? It's because it's still detaching you from your body. It's a foreign object that you're applying to your body. It's not like your fingers. It's not like your lips. It's not the same level of intimate connection with your own body. And number two, the rate at which a vibrator vibrates is far faster than anybody's hand or fingers.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit like porn in that, yeah, it can get you off and it can get you off and you can go for a long time. Again, it's mostly clitoral. You can have some vaginal orgasms for sure. It's artificial.
You can desensitize the
It
clitoris as well, right?
definitely desensitizes. Absolutely. So after a while, you're not getting the same pleasure from your husband, trying to masturbate you or gently trying to masturbate you or anything like that. You just won't get the same pleasure, and you'll automatically reach for the vibrator because that's better. And then you're having a relationship with a vibrator that's becoming addictive.
Yeah.
Which it's not really healthy.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. That's really that's a very, very interesting point.
Yeah. So I would say one of the ways to weed out the sexual coaches and gurus that aren't worth their salt is, I think, once they start talking vibrators and use of vibrators, on to the next person. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Find another teacher.
Or if they're saying vagina holders and penis holders, then I just I can't, I just can't. When you can't say men and women anymore, vagina owners and penis owners, and there were quite a few that I used to listen to, like Sex with Emily, I don't know, like different podcasts. And then when she started talking like that, it's like, no, there are men and women. It's like, don't give me this BS with vagina owners.
Yes.
But yeah, I agree.
I agree. So I would just say, if you're starting to get curious, maybe your body is coming alive. Maybe you're feeling better after, 3 years of being divorced or whatever it is. Your body is telling you something. Your body is telling you it's not ready to go dormant. Yeah. And do you really want to give up on some incredible pleasure that could last to the end of your days, right?
Absolutely. No, this was a great episode, Dr. Lucille. I loved it. And guys, this is your sign to go out there and enjoy yourselves. You guys know what Dr. Lucille and I will be doing this evening. We're not going to tell you, but it's our business, but it's going to be nice. Thank you guys so much, guys, for bearing with us and for listening to us. Hopefully you learned a lot in this episode. I definitely have. And it was great asking you these questions. Lucille, you're so knowledgeable in this area. So I love this. And guys, thank you so much for watching, listening. Please keep sending us your questions. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this episode with a woman or a man, not a vagina holder, not a penis holder, but men and women that can actually benefit from this. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Please be aware that Lynn and I are here to provide insights, advice, stories that are for educational and entertainment purposes only. None of our content should be considered to be personal, medical, or mental health therapy. If you are experiencing a mental health or physical health challenge, please consult the appropriate healthcare specialist. We are here to provide the best possible content in an atmosphere of positive conversation and personal growth.